Welcome back to DK Sports Radio. You're listening to the Miller Lite Q&A podcast. I'm Chris Carter here with Chris Bradford taking on your questions. Chris, how you doing, my man?
I am doing well. Hockey season is over. I have a little downtime, so I've been doing some Pirates and trying to keep up with all the Pittsburgh sports.
That's fun. That's always cool getting to switch it up. I like the versatility. Me, I'm straight football all day, every day. I also do the NBA, but there's no NBA in Pittsburgh. So I digress. We're going to take on our first question, who comes from Clint Novak. Let's crack this open real quick, and this is going to be directed to you, Mr. Penguins man. It's going to be the question from Clint was, who would you argue is the greatest defenseman in Penguins history using only their time in a Penguins uniform?
The qualifier, only in a Penguins uniform.
Yes, because, of course, you could change that up a little bit.
I did a story on that last week about who was the ranking the 10 best Penguins defensemen of all time. And, of course, I came to the conclusion that it was Chris Letang because I believe he is the best, Penguins bred and raised defenseman they've ever had. I mean, he's been here for a dozen years. He's synonymous with the organization. He's had more success than anyone in a Penguins uniform. But
3 rings?
Yep, 3 rings. And if you're looking maybe for who's the best pure defenseman, and how's the question, Clinton?
The best defenseman in considering only their time.
Okay. All right. I would have to say it was Paul Coffey. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame defenseman. He comes to Pittsburgh in December of '87, and as good as he was, when he got here, I think it meant something because that's when you started to see the organization really start to, kind of shed itself as a loser. You had Mario Lemieux, of course, there at the time, and those two combined for some of the prettiest goals that I certainly have ever seen. That's going back to my youth. But when he was passing to Mario Lemieux and setting up all these breakaway goals that they seem to do every time, and Lemieux was this Paul Bunyan figure. He was like 7 foot tall, with huge wingspan, and Coffey would just give him these great stretch passes. And Paul Coffey to me was certainly the best offensive defenseman of his era, so I would have to say he was definitely the Penguins' best defenseman.
You still see some Coffey jerseys around town.
Oh yeah, sweet number 77.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty looking jersey. It's just the name with the numbers. I always liked it. I'm surprised you didn't go with Rob Scuderi. I'm saying this.
No, I like Rob Scuderi.
I know, a great,
a very different role, but not making this list. No,
of course not. Well, I'd say that because he had a historic part. If he doesn't make that last minute block. Again, I think
Detroit,
Game 6 in the 2009 Stanley Cup Finals, the Penguins might have lost for a second year in a row to the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, all love here for Rob Scuderi. I like those defensive defensemen. I wish there were more of them in the game, but I think the game itself is getting away from that. But, yeah, he's certainly among the better Penguins defensemen.
Well, that's always interesting, but but that's cool. But I think when you have a list with Paul Coffey and Chris Letang on it, you're doing pretty well as an organization.
Yeah, and there's other guys you can throw in there. I think Larry Murphy obviously was another guy who was a Hall of Fame defenseman, had some big years here in Pittsburgh. But again, I think of him more as a Washington Capital. That's the team he was with before he got to Pittsburgh, I believe, or Minnesota. Also in there, he played for a lot of teams, and it's sort of like Paul Coffey. I mean, it's kind of sad when you look at his card or whatever you say nowadays. When you see the number of teams he played with, it's about 10 teams.
Yeah.
So that's why Chris Letang got my vote, because it just says Chris Letang, P-I-T, end of story.
There you go. We'll be right back to take on a few more of your questions.
Miller Lite is the original light beer, and we'll always brew it to have more taste, with only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs. Because we believe that if you compromise on taste, you can taste the compromise. Miller Lite. Hold true.
Great beer, great responsibility. 2018 Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Average analysis, 12 fluid ounces. Less than 1 gram protein, 0 grams fat.
If you're one of the thousands of Western Pennsylvanians who love to get outdoors, then you need to check out this cool new website, stepoutside.org. Learn where, when, and how you can go camping, hiking, or hunting, or take part in power sports, shooting sports, or water sports in your local community or across the country at stepoutside.org, where everything you need to know is just a click away. That's stepoutside.org.
What I want from my public accounting firm is big ideas.
But I don't want to lose the personal attention.
My company needs global capabilities.
From a firm with local ownership.
and I want to work with industry experts.
Who take the time to understand my unique challenges. And that's what sets Schneider Downs apart. Expertise for the most complex business issues, with the service you need every day. To learn how our big thinking with a personal focus can help your company, visit schneiderdowns.com.
Injured in an accident? Need assistance in preserving your business's interests? Let the attorneys at Bassey, Vreeland & Associates protect your legal rights. For over 65 years, Bassey, Vreeland & Associates has been representing the citizens and businesses of southwestern Pennsylvania. With offices strategically located in Washington and Charleroi, Bassey, Vreeland & Associates can deliver results for you throughout the Pittsburgh area. Visit www.bmvlaw.com or call 724-228-7000 to see how Bassey, Vreeland & Associates can meet your legal needs. Bassey, Vreeland & Associates. We fight, we care, we win.
Welcome back to DK Sports Radio. You're listening to the Miller Lite Q&A podcast. I'm Chris Carter here with Chris Bradford, taking on all your sports questions. Chris, we got another question. This is a more generic question spanning across all the sports. This one comes from our good friend Radio Wave, who asks, which sport does the best job with replays?
Well, that's a very good question. And I'm going to give the answer that none of them do it very well.
Right. But who does it the least worst? You know?
I would say who does it worst. And I think for me, that's the NFL. Because to me, the game, now that I'm away from covering the NFL and watching games more on TV now, you realize just how much it just stops the flow of the game. It seems every other play is being reviewed.
And a touchdown isn't just a touchdown anymore. You score, and then they immediately review it because every score is reviewed. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, it just really kills the flow of the game. And, baseball to me is the all-American game. And even to me, they've killed the game, along with shifts and defense and stuff. But the replay is a big part of it, because the one thing I really hate is the guy slides off the base, or he's like a hair off, and only by video replay could you tell. Could you see that? In real time, using your eyes and common sense. Yeah. It's a good play. I don't like it, and I fear that we're only going to see more of it in all sports.
And I think you saw people. I don't know where Radio Wave was coming from on this. Thank you for the question, by the way. But there was definitely a huge moment in the NBA Finals in Game 1 in the fourth quarter. It was less than a minute, and Kevin Durant was driving into the paint to take a layup, and LeBron James stepped in the way and set up for a charge. He has hands down, shoulders back. The typical charge position. And initially, he got the charge call, but then they reviewed it, and they showed on the replay. And initially, I thought it was a blocking foul because his feet were still moving. But you see on the replay, his left foot is planted, but his right foot is still sliding over and in the air. And so when they came back, called it a blocking foul, gave Durant 2 shots, and that put the pressure on the Cavs to. They gave the Warriors a lead and pushed the pressure on the Cavs, and of course, then the whole J.R. Smith thing happened where he thought the score was they had the lead or something like that. But moments like that, it's like that's one of the classic questions of replay is it worth all this trouble to get something right like that, or is it okay to accept? Look, this is a sport. Bang bang moments happen. Where we live off of human error, and we have these referees that are working hard all game. Stop slowing down the game. Let's just play ball.
Yeah, I kind of miss the old days. And, we're talking about the NBA. We talked the NFL. Let's not forget the NHL. I mean, that's another sport that has had its own issues with the replay. And it's not so much the replay. It's kind of just more the interpretation of the rules, because this year, obviously, goaltender interference was the biggest issue in the league. And, okay, was the goalie interfered with? Okay, he was. Now let's review it. And it's kind of arbitrary as to what the interference was, right, whether it's a penalty or not. I think they just got to get rid of it, personally.
Yeah, I think that some sports, I think replay is important for very specific moments, but when you start expanding it to every part of the game, that's when it drives you nuts. Like I think replay in football should be like, did the person step out of bounds? But when you start replaying, like people are talking about, head placement and, the different things.
Oh, yeah, I just saw that stuff about the head placement. That's pretty crazy.
It makes it too complicated, because now we have to consider all these different things. Again, we're going to be stopping the game even more. These games, when people go to these games, and I'm thinking from a fan perspective, I don't come here to sit for 4 hours and watch people debate, go back and forth about whether or not this was a catch or not. I sat there to sit through for 3 hours to see the best people in the world play this game that I like to watch and root for the team that represents my city or whatever I feel like rooting for that day.
Yeah, and it's not just the players that are the very best at their position or at their sport. It's also the referees are supposed to be.
Yeah,
and there is going to be supposed to be, and there's always going to be human error, but. As I was saying that I fear there's more coming, I also wonder with the addition now of legalized gambling, how much more is is the owner's going to be like, it has to be the perfect call, and how much longer these games are going to take because, hey, there's gambling involved. It can't be wrong.
Yeah, and that's a very good point because money's on the line, and again, when you consider that the pressure on these officials becomes even higher. To get it right, and now that impacts. Do I make the call that I think, or do I just stick with the original call? All those things get taken into consideration. But I'm on the side that I think you should be able to review very limited amount of plays. Like I like the NFL system of being able to challenge 2 plays, and if you get one right, you get another one. But challenge, like you're reviewing every touchdown, it's just so annoying. And I'm sure Steelers fans out there probably think that it was really annoying because it was the NFL's review of Jesse James's catch, not the Patriots. Bill Belichick said, I'm pretty sure that was a catch. We thought we lost the game.
Common sense would have told you it was a catch.
Right, exactly. But the NFL reviewed it on their own, and hello, I'm Al Riveron, and that's what happened. So I think, I'm on the side. I'm not all the way where I say get rid of it entirely, but I am on the side of we need to draw this back a lot because it's gotten to a very ridiculous point.
Yeah, it's one of those. I see what you're saying, and I would agree with let's just do it as limited as possible. But you kind of open Pandora's box when you even allow it a little bit. So to me, it's got to be either one way or another.
Slippery slope.
It's a very slippery slope, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be on the losing end of it.
Because everyone no, my team got who can't take that? No. So yeah, that's always gonna be a debate. But thank you for the question, Radio Wave, and thank you for listening to our show here on the Miller Lite Q&A podcast. Chris, it was always great working with you, man.
Good working with you. We've got to do this more often.
We will. And stay tuned to DK Sports Radio for more great content.